everybody, welcome back to day 2 of the Indie Game Business Sessions, March 2020. I don't know, 2022? Are we in 2022? I think we are.
So. I'm not sure.
So
time machine.
I wrapped up yesterday with Hip Hop Gamer, one of my favorite, most energetic people in the entire world, who was introduced to me by another one of my favorite people in the world, Nika. Is it Nour?
Nour.
I always try to put too many accents and shit.
Get it? You get more with Nour.
Well, I mean, that's what I would bleed into here, because you are one of those people that makes me go, what have I done with my life? Look at everything that Nika's done with her life. What have I done?
I'm always like, I'm exhausted. Don't do half of what it wasn't worth
it. So we've done this before, but you have an update. So
I do.
Last time you were here, you were the executive director of the IGDA Foundation.
I was.
And now you have like Marshall Fault, beast mode spun out of that account, dump that on Sarah, who'll be with us later today.
Yeah.
And so tell us what you're doing now.
I have a fancy job now, Jay. I'm
like, oh my God.
I know. I'm not doing that kind of like subjective save the world stuff. I'm working on super cool projects, half of which I can't even talk about till like June, July, the fall, because I'm now in the more game devy space. So I am the head of partnerships at GenVid Entertainment. It's an arm under GenVid Holdings. I think you've had folks from GenVid Technologies on before. And as head of partnerships, I work on, working on deals, relationships, meetings with platforms. We work with studios. We work with a variety of other partners, and we put together massive interactive live events. So very recently, we actually published Pac-Man on Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg himself posted about it. And we recently announced our latest project on The Walking Dead. So it's a hard job, Jay, because it's the first time where like I actually have to watch what comes out of my mouth. Because
wait, you had to do that with the IGDA Foundation.
But that was different. This is under NDA. Before I had to use my judgment. Now I'm under it. Yeah.
Well,
now
it's actually easier. I mean, from somebody who signs like 3 NDAs a day, you just assume everything is under NDA. That's even easier.
Yeah, but no, it's really impressive. I'm really, really excited. Please invite me back on when there's more to talk about, especially with some of the big IP that we have and exciting projects. Before we get into it, I will say, if you are looking for a job, oh my gosh, we are hiring. I will populate many things in the Discord. Please come work for us and also be under tight NDAs where we can never tell anybody what we're doing all the time.
Do we get to move to the middle of a cornfield?
I don't know. I know we're fully remote. If you have Wi-Fi in the cornfield, our leadership really doesn't care unless you get your work done. That cornfield does have to be in like states though that we're like registered to hire. But I like this image now of people just like developing in cornfields.
Well, I mean, you did move from like the middle of Drama Central in DC to like the Midwest. And so
but Kansas City isn't a cornfield. Like I've got like a huge pool here, like 2 Nespresso machines, access to a spa, like 10% off to every brewery in town. This isn't a
the important shit. That's what it is like.
I'm like living my best life, my most affordable luxury life.
God, I am glad I get to interview you this morning because I'm not awake and I'm just basically.
I will say, yesterday it was 70 degrees and now there's a full snowstorm. I don't really understand Midwest weather. I love being a California resident because I just know what to expect when I wake up the next day.
No, and we're gonna get that snowstorm right after you are. So yeah, it was like 70 yesterday, and we've got 3 inches of snow coming in on Saturday. So yeah, that's mountain life too.
Well, that's why I'm excited to travel to conferences to get out of this like snowstorm, and I am packing for all sorts of weather.
You're just gonna Ted Cruz at the hell right out of there, right?
Yeah, I know. Well, luckily I won't be having meetings with Ted Cruz because we're a tech and gaming company. So
That's true. That is very true.
yeah.
All right. So you just said before we went live, because otherwise
Yeah.
you and I aren't going to really share any knowledge. We're going to sit here and bullshit for an hour, which
We
I'm
could.
totally good with doing that too.
Yeah.
But I reached out to you, and you ignored all those emails that I
I
sent.
did. In my
Yes.
defense, you went to spam.
Mhm.
We have like tight security at Genvid.
So yeah. All right. I reached out because many, many years ago, either on this show or in something else that we did, you mentioned that you were looking forward to not having to give your talk on how to, especially for women, stay
Yeah.
safe at conferences, which I refer to as the "don't drink roofies" talk.
Yeah.
Well, let's start there. Let's start because you said you're prepping for
Sure.
South by Southwest. We obviously got GDC coming up,
Yeah.
in 2 weeks, which, now that this conference is almost over, I can actually start thinking about where do you want to start on this? Do we want to start with networking or prep or
We can kind of cover it and bring back the context, especially if you're a game dev, if you're a business development person, if you're somebody who knows like what the value of in-person networking at conferences is like. I mean, I just came back from DICE and I did go to CES. The world is a little bit different now. Networking and conferences are very different now. It's not even about like safety in terms of like managing, like managing creepy people. It's also like managing COVID, it's managing expectations, social cues. But we also just like put a pause on life, right? In a weird way. Like life moved forward. We didn't pause there. We had a pandemic. And so I used to say that like going to conferences felt like that moment in the Avengers where it's been 5 years and everybody came back. But actually I was corrected. It's not like it's been 5 years and everyone's back. It feels like we're at that 2-3 mark point after Thanos wiped out half the planet. And those that go to conferences, we're the ones that kind of like didn't get wiped out. We're still here. And we're trying to figure out a way to bring everybody back.
but that means we got 5 years older, and I would totally prefer to just like skip 5 years.
I would too, but
you
that's
know,
really what it's like because not everybody's going to conferences. You have to pull a lot of information, the expectations and the norms you had when it came to networking, like all of that is gone.
all right,
I've
so
spent more time preparing for conferences than I have ever had in like the 11 years of attending South by or GDC.
So when you went to CES, I didn't even realize we did CES this year. So when you went to CES and DICE, so what were some of the things that were different? What's the first thing that people are going to notice when they get to their live event that's changed from, yesteryear?
I think like before we kind of knew who was going to be there and who was going to be where. Now, especially with my next 2 conferences coming up, I send a lot of emails. I have to pull to explain to people like, oh, a new job or a new technology, like especially if you're not working for a big brand, like I'm at Amazon, I'm at Google, I'm at Xbox. Like if you are like trying to pitch an idea, if you are trying to reintroduce yourself, if you're trying to reintroduce, or if you got a new job in the pandemic, you have to really pull time from people's calendars in advance and almost like prep them on like your new life, because when you get to the conference you end up wasting a lot. It's not a waste, but you end up spending a lot of time on the catch up end because there's people you haven't spoken to in 3-4 years, and it's not annoying. But before, like you can kind of just walk into a room, go to any happy hour, and you can expect to run into people. Those expectations are now all gone. You have to do prep work on what people's comforts are, I literally know people going to GDC that are not going to be indoors or anywhere. They're actually sitting in a park, because, and it's totally fair. They want to be safe. They want to feel good. They've been very, very careful the last 2 years in San Francisco. Some people are coming from different cities and countries where their cultural there's COVID like CDC guidelines, and then there's like cultural guidelines or contextual guidelines, or a country that had completely different restrictions. And so I know people that are literally sitting in a park outside at GDC, and that's the only way they're taking meetings.
I know those people too, because I see them, and I have been wondering this entire time how packed that park is going to be, because that seems to
I
be like
know.
everybody's idea. It's like, we're going to
I'm
go
gonna
to the
sit at this park.
Yerba Buena, whatever the name of that thing is,
Yeah.
outside GDC. And I'm like, everybody I'm talking to is like, meet me out there in the park. And I'm like, y'all are
Yeah.
all going to be out there. And it's
It's gonna
probably
be like
yeah.
a very weird variation of Coachella out there. People are like staking their claim
We're-
6 feet.
we're going to build a big wicker man and burn that some bitch right in the
I
middle
know.
of San Francisco.
I don't think the city of San Francisco is going to allow for Burning Man, but I can see that park is going to be very stacked. I agree with you.
So, and we talk about this, especially when I'm trying to pitch people and convince them that digital events are a good thing. And one of the things that we always talk about is you've got typically a 30-minute meeting at a conference. Now, the people
Right.
that we know and that we are much more comfortable with, it's like, for those people, we schedule drinks in coffee shops that may be an hour, or at the bar, or lunch, or dinners, or whatever. But for the most part, you're going to have 30 minutes. And so you're right.
Yeah.
Used to be, okay, you're going to get there 5 minutes late because you had to run from one hall to the other. You're going to have to leave 5 minutes early because you got to get to your next meeting that you're going to be 5 minutes late for. So already you're down to 20 minutes. Then you got to factor in all the people that are going to walk by and say, hey, how are you? Where you been? And if you have to factor in, okay, now I have to explain exactly what it is that I'm doing because I'm with a new company, or I've got a new game, or we have this whole new project. Yeah, your time to actually talk is minimal. So we'll get into how to properly brief people before you get there, because that came up yesterday, and the fact that nobody reads anything. So you
have to write really clever subject lines.
Well, yes. And then they open it and they go, that's a lot of words. And then they close it.
Maybe.
So let's start pregame,
Okay.
like the state that we're in right now. So from our side, when we would get hired by companies to manage their GDC meetings, trade organizations, whatever, we would literally start planning meetings in January for a mid-March event. People aren't doing that so much this year. And you're right, we don't know. So how do you go and prioritize who you're actually going to meet with and find them?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I literally start with kind of like, here's my must-see people. And then like I'll explain, like South by Southwest, I'll tell you, right? Like our COO is coming down. It's his first time. I want him to have a great time, but I have no idea what South by Southwest this year is going to be like. There's a lot of people that aren't coming, but there's still a bunch of stuff to do. And I cannot tell you how many people I was messaging 2 weeks ago, last night, and everyone is like, we'll meet on the fly. And I was like, no. And you know why? And or like, oh, I haven't really RSVP'd to events. I'll figure out when I'm there. And I'm like, everything's already sold out. It's almost like people forgot, for example, with South by in particular, people forgot what it was like before. What it was like before is when we first went to South by like 10 years ago, we were like, oh, we'll figure it out on the fly. And then we get to an event or like the CNN house or the Twitter house, and we're like, oh, we'll get tickets out the door. And of course, there's a line a bazillion miles long. Now we have to scramble to find somebody to get us in. And like half our friends are turned away. This year, I proactively submitted RSVPs to like places you needed invites with a +8 because of how many people have seemed to forgotten that South by requires names on a list. And so I literally RSVP'd for 8 tickets to everything. And I'm like, and it's great because now I hold all the cards. Like, you want to go to this thing? You're going to have to meet with me.
And that's how we get to extortion in the game industry. Yes,
exactly. I'm going to have a great expense account for South by because everyone's going to have to buy me drinks. and lunch, and I won't have to do as not because we don't have the funding, mostly because I don't really like doing my receipts.
Yes, see that's the same philosophy we have here at the consulting firm. It's like, what? Just tell me whatever it was. I don't have time to deal
Yeah.
with all that. So getting the tiers in there, and yeah, I do think you're right. I think we're going to see a lot of we don't remember.
We forgot what it was like 3 years ago.
But
And we're
even
all
this time,
pretending like it's just gonna magically come together.
we're going to have to do it again next year because it's like we don't know. I would My guess at GDC is if we have 50% of the people that
Yeah.
normally go, that'll be a good run.
It's still a lot of people. I
It
think
is still a lot of people. Yes.
like it's people who are like, oh my gosh, it's so like at CES, I still had plenty of people to see. I still had people I didn't have time to meet with. Because the issue is I need to almost have longer form one-on-one conversations because you are literally catching up on 3 years of efforts, and you're also trying to be forward looking like, hey, these are the things I'm going to call you about in 6 months.
Nika is way better at this than I am.
That's not true. That's not true. The trick that I use is I curate, like I curate almost my conference experiences. I've never had to curate it this heavily, but you have to because you like people are flying in internationally. People have to take COVID tests. People have to isolate if they're leaving to somewhere else or they're getting their visas. So like I curate, and I used to do this pre um, COVID, but I was able to do it on the fly. I always create a Nika's Chicas WhatsApp group per conference, and I attach the year.
You haven't got me in that yet.
That's because we met in the pandemic. That like we've never met in real life.
I am.
You are my podcast friend. I'll make a T-shirt.
Hey, don't worry about it.
My
I've been working with Dan
podcast
for 3 years now. I've never met him in real life either. So
yeah, right. Like it's that's really what it is. And so like, for example, now all these people who want to meet on the fly, I add them all to my WhatsApp group. I make sure that they're people that get along. I make sure they're people that are like badasses in the industry, people like trust, respect, aren't shitty. And we trade invites. I will put up a bat signal when I have free time because I planned my conference. And so if I have a free time, I'll be like, I'm here. Please find me, or who's free for coffee, lunch, whatever, to talk about X. And believe it or not, people always show up. You know why? Because they didn't plan ahead and they have nothing better to do.
it's great. Now I have to block off time in my schedule in San Francisco because Nika might send me a WhatsApp message.
Exactly.
So, yeah,
I
that's
might
excellent.
send you a WhatsApp, and it'll go to the whole group, and I will prioritize based on like a first come first serve, or if I need to get something out of you before you fly out.
Nice. All right.
It's also just a great whisper channel, like free food here. Oh my gosh, CEO here. This booth is giving away free video games. We can win wired controllers. Let's go stack the system and vote for our favorite whatever.
Oh, wait,
Like,
so you actually have a pass to go on the floor?
yeah, of course.
No, I mean, I haven't bought one in a decade.
I believe it. This is the first year I'm going badgeless to South by because I didn't submit any panels because I didn't know if the conference was going to happen. I really thought at the beginning of this year that we weren't going to have any conferences again anyway.
I didn't expect us to have one until Gamescom.
Yeah.
So I'm a little bit surprised on that as well. All right, so when you've got your list curated, which is, I mean, that's what we do here. We basically build target lists for our clients and we put them in tiers. So what do you do if you like really want to meet with some company, but you don't know how to get to them, who to talk to, that sort of stuff?
I literally ask every person I'm having a fun time with, do you know anybody at X? And right there, if anyone says yes, I go, introduce me right now.
Yes, it's the pre-networking networking. Yes.
Yeah. If I'm literally meeting people on the fly, I will literally have a list of asks, but I always show up with things to offer. And it literally varies from like, I literally ask, what can I help you with? Whether it's an introduction, giving them a cigar, buying them their coffee, getting them into a party. Like I always show up with the toolkit of things I can give. So when I ask, I also have an offer because I'm not a bad person. Like it doesn't mean you're a bad person. I don't like just totally taking from people. I don't really, it's not in my DNA. Persian culture, we're very giving people. We like being helpful. It's like the way I was raised. Eager to please and like make people's lives better with like things that really cost me nothing. So I have a lot to I always show up with a lot to offer. That's because I register with a +8 to everything.
Again, we're straddling that line between being helpful and being an extortionist, but that's okay.
Yeah,
That's all
it's
good.
a beautiful line. It's called
All right.
business.
So I'm going to ask a question and then I have to step away because we can all hear my four-legged assistant who is not happy with me outside. So what do you prep for a meeting? What do you go into that meeting with ready to go with so you know you're not going to be wasting that 15 to 20 minutes that you actually have?
Yeah, at the beginning of the year, I wish I did things a little differently, mostly because I was taking these long form meetings to actually explain our technology. And now I, in addition to asking people what they're doing, I literally just like hyperlink to our latest announcement, which is The Walking Dead. And so it's great because I can now jump into conversations and just talk about The Walking Dead and like, I'll be like, oh, we hit 4 million users on Pac-Man or whatever. Like those are baked into my email. And I know people are reading them, Jay, because I get responses that are like, Pac-Man is so cool. Like, I know people don't read your emails. I would suggest putting interesting things in your emails and people will read them.
I'm just going to start putting that they come from you on the
Yeah.
emails. And
Just be
that
like,
way
do you like
people.
Pac-Man? Meet my friend Nika Nour.
So, I mean, I am so old school that I still have like papers that I take and this is who
No.
I'm meeting with. I know. All right, look, ADD. Okay. I have to have
Okay.
like 14 layers of everything or
Yeah.
it gets completely, but I outline who I'm meeting with, where it is, obviously, but then, what do I want to make sure I talk about in this meeting? And then a little thing for my action items because yes, I'm old.
Yeah.
Um,
See, and I haven't been that when I thought I was going to have that approach at the beginning of the year. I mean, I literally had a meeting where I had a lot of asks, but you have to read the room too.
mhm.
There was a meeting where literally this person that I've been friends with for a long time just wanted to talk about their dogs. Like, no, it's fine. I mean, you have to remember that, like, relationships at these conferences these days, like you have to really be ready for a variety. Not everybody is like, oh my gosh, let's go get them. There are people that really haven't seen people, they haven't interacted, and you can't just go in with a hard pitch. You can't like be salesy. You have to. There are some people that really actually just want to catch up on what's going on in your life, and you just want to get to the punchline and ask about, what deals or acquisitions like are happening at their company. But you just can't, and you literally have to find touch points to see that person again and again and again to finally bring up the thing that you want to actually talk about. You can't just guess. Well, guess that's it's not a Zoom call, Jay. You don't just show up and be like, in 30 minutes, we're going to cover like people want people interaction.
And
Yeah, go ahead.
that's a huge part of these things. And that's
Yeah.
one of so I had a friend of mine, they were going to PAX or something. I'm assuming it was PAX because it's a conference that I've never been to. And I want to go to PAX, but I don't want to go to PAX to work. I want to go to PAX to play. They were freaking out a little bit because their laptop died. And they're like, how am I going to pitch my game without a laptop? And I'm like, don't pitch your game.
Yeah.
It's like, go in there, build like an honest to God relationship with this person, talk to them, what's going on in their world, find out, what they're up to, what they're looking for, that sort of thing. And when you go back, then send them the demo. Because the reality is, if you're out there, like us, either pitching games to publishers or scouting games for publishers, over the course of 5 days of GDC, you're going to see 50, 100 games. You're not going to remember them. I mean, that's just the reality of it. So, but if you have that, heart to heart, nice, friendly, no pressure, just conversation with somebody, in many cases, that can be even better than sitting down there and blowing through 10 minutes of your demo.
Yeah, I mean, I respond to emails more so when I'm like, oh my gosh, that person was awesome. And I mean, Dice is an amazing example of this. I was just reminiscing with a general manager at another company over email, and I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't sleep, which I recommend sleeping. That really wrecked me, because I didn't pace myself at Dice at all, and but I couldn't help it. We were all like, if you are a business development person, if you are a game dev that's like hasn't seen people, or then you keep running into people you didn't even know was there because their names aren't in the Dice app because they came last minute. So many people arrived last minute. Um, we were like hyperactive puppies. Like there are 100% people that I know their face and name now that I wouldn't have known before, but I have no idea what we talked about. And I know we only had like 5-minute interactions, and we've all been following up on LinkedIn. Like, you're amazing. We didn't talk about anything substantive, but I actually do need to talk to you about this. And everyone's been responsive. So
Yes.
it's like, it's almost like now you're going out there and it's like Pokemon cards, and you're like, "Oh my gosh, I haven't seen a Charmander in years. I need to catch one." You know what I mean? Like, like, I'll deal with it later. I don't need fire type right now. I actually need electric, but I'm gonna need fire types in like 6 months when I get to this gym.
All right.
Like,
I have figured this out.
yeah.
We're going to take LinkedIn profile pictures from people, turn them into NFTs,
No,
and then
no,
we're going to
no,
sell and collect them like Pokemon. See, we're going to be rich, Nika. I mean,
no. There
people
are
spent
entire
$70 million on those ugly ass Pixelmon pictures. So, I mean,
there are entire people that I've had an incredible working relationship throughout the pandemic, but we had like this moment we saw each other. I was like, it's so nice to see you in person. But we had this like unspoken, like, but we know how to get to each other. We're going to go like tackle these other people. There was like this like unspoken vibe of like, we don't really need to discuss anything further. I know where to find you. And I swear, I don't know if it was like deliriousness, exhaustion, but like I definitely, there were like 2 people I can think of specifically where we just vibed like, yeah, cool. You're real. And then like we just moved on. And we followed up on email because maybe we're only comfortable talking online.
we used to, when we would go to conferences back when I worked for the agency, we may not have had anything to heavily pitch at that
Yeah.
conference, but we called it just waving the flag. You're going there, making sure that people know that you're still alive, and that things are still going on, and you're still active in the industry, if nothing else. Um, but yeah, I mean that's an absolutely perfectly good way to do this. So, from the developer standpoint, what is let's put this in most development standpoint, most developer situations. They may or may not have a pass to the conference.
Yeah.
If they're there for 4 days and they want to meet the business folks and pitch a game or pitch contract work or whatever, what would you say is the best use of their time on the ground in San
Reach out
Francisco?
now, do your prep work, figure out who's there. A lot of people, it's weird. There are people that are like, there are so many people, good people that I'm even close to that are like, I'm really tightly busy and my schedule's packed, because there are some people that just like packed their conference to the brim. And I actually don't recommend that. Yeah. Because
I don't either.
I don't recommend it because you want gaps because you miss out on the serendipity of running into people. Um, you really do. If there are people and again, I would focus it on like, if your pitch is tight, make sure your pitch is very tight. If your pitch is tight, go ahead and demo it. Really try to get in front of people on the early side of conferences. I promise you that by Wednesday, people are not going to be paying attention to anything you're saying, and they're going to be in this like euphoria of like, should I sleep or should I drink or should I drink more water, right? Like, it's, which is like any conference, but it's a different level of exhausting. You definitely get tired faster because your body's literally not used to it. You're mentally tired faster because you are constantly trying to register and read social cues and directly ask like, what is your COVID comfort, what is whatever. And then I know this is why you originally asked me to come on. If you are someone from a marginalized background, if you are female, non-binary, etc., guess what? Social cues are back. We gotta it's a different world. Like, your mind is not just registering the pitch or your purpose, and like also like talking about your brand on top of trying to get to people's comforts. You have to like ask a series of questions and then try to remember them, in addition to like, what was their name again, and then try to remember them when you bump into them the next time. And there are some people that are literally, I know, there's the gig, but
Yeah,
remember, like,
my name.
you've never, like, the games industry gathering, which is an awesome online gathering. I host it sometimes. Guy Blumberg founded it. The games industry gathering, people have never met in real life, other than, like, I guess if you went to PAX. It's
Yeah,
different.
but
Meeting
even
people
then,
online
yeah,
is different than in person. Some people don't look like what they look like online. Not in a good way or bad way. Like, they're just really
I do.
tall or
Yes,
really
yeah.
short. Um, Also, people converse differently than when they do online and offline. And again, like, I will say, for women and non-binary folks, like, it's parts of like being safe at a conference. It is like riding a bike. It'll kick in and you're trying to register. Like, you're always trying to register what's the agenda, not even just as like somebody from like a minority background, but even as just a business person. You're just trying to read, like, what is this person's agenda and having a conversation with me? Is it fun? Is it business? Are they creepy? And I I will say though, like, I went into these conferences, it's been a while. I was like more optimistic. I see the good in people. I haven't had incidences because I do stay safe, because I always make sure, I know this is so like, I have a buddy system, but I
Look,
really
I mean,
do.
everybody should. I mean,
Everybody should have a buddy system. It doesn't even matter if like you're a minority or whatnot. Like, it's just good to have a friend, a colleague, an ally that you're traveling with, because you also don't know the conditions of where you're traveling to or what the city is like post pandemic.
well, I mean, and so GVC is a victim of itself here. It's so expensive that people end up having to get hotels and Airbnbs
Yeah, and bunk
several
up.
blocks. And there are very not safe places, even very close to the Moscone Center, that you have to
Yeah,
be aware of. You kind of got to keep your head on a swivel, but everybody should have that buddy system. You shouldn't be walking alone, especially at night in parts of San Francisco. Just
yeah.
no. Everything. I had a good friend of mine. His laptop was plucked right out of his messenger
Yep.
bag at the Powell Street train thingy
I
turnaround.
believe
Yes.
it. I believe it. I mean, then that's really like the key term we're looking for here is situational awareness, right? And how do
Yes.
you lose that situational awareness? You're
You don't go to a
inebriated.
conference for 3 years.
You're inebriated. You're consuming too much or too little. You're not eating enough. You're not sleeping. You're not. And I think, like, you know, I did mention Dice was like a hyperactive puppy, but CES, I was actually the most careful there. I went to bed every night at 11. I was up at 8. It's like probably the healthiest I've ever left CES. I actually could speak. I had a voice. I never had conference voice. Because also the mandates in Vegas were different than stuff shut down around 10 o'clock. Um, and people and I think San Francisco will be a hybrid of that. I think South by Southwest is mostly outdoors, so you're going to see people that will be maybe a little bit more relaxed. But every event I'm RSVPing to is asking for or encouraging masks or requiring proof of COVID vaccination. And right, this is like an additional thing that you have to mentally just remember. Don't forget your COVID card. There are people that are not accepting pictures of COVID cards. 100%. They're just not. They want to see your actual COVID card, and we know what happens if you lose that. You're in trouble. So I think there's more. You could be the sharpest tool in the shed. You could be the most extroverted, the most planned, the most whatever, but there is a mental fatigue that is going to hit. And that's why the buddy system is helpful, so that you have a check and balance system. I always like to go to events with somebody I know. I'm never like, oh, please be my buddy. But like,
Of course you're not. You're extorting them for, their
exactly. I have a +8. Yeah, my buddy system rolls with like +8. I was like, I want the most, and it's weird. I'm very much like, especially if it's like after 10, I get very, I still go out because, and here's why, a lot of great deals happen after 7 p.m. And like that's why I don't necessarily like to be like nothing good happens after 8. It's true, like debauchery happens, and you have to kind of go in and read the room and be like, ooh, I see things that I definitely don't want to be a part of. I'm out of here. At the same time, like, especially for female executives, like grab a buddy and go out and look out for each other. But like a lot of good conversations are happening at the bar, a lot of the C-suite, they're having private salon dinners, and none of it's happening like 2 o'clock in the park. I
I
don't
had
think
a
I'll see a lot of C-suite executives having closed door conversations in the park outside.
I mean, it's true.
I like the idea of them doing that, though. That would be cool.
But yeah, no. I mean, a lot of the conversations that we've always had end up being, in the hotel lobbies, in the hotel bars. That's where the actual business gets done.
Yeah.
Parties, I'm like 50-50 on, because most of the time you get there, it's loud as hell. You can't hear anything.
You're not
anyway.
having any conversations at those. You're just like, I mean, my MO is I just get really loud and start finger pointing. I literally start just like saying things like pew pew to get excitement. I forgot that was my MO when it's just like loud and it's too much. Like I just start like adding my flavor to it. I was a guy actually from Gig was reminding me of my hand gestures.
We can't talk about him. He's actually in chat, so we'll have to wait till he leaves chat, and then we can talk about it. Yes,
perfect. Yeah.
All right. So we've actually got a question, and it's gigantic. If I click on it, it shows up on the screen. It's going to like block the entire screen. So I'm just going to go with me here. It's from Thomas over on LinkedIn. They're working on a game. They recently sent a pitch deck to Humble Bundle for an opportunity for Black game developers. He says, I'm noticing that it's hard to get to know people who are connected in the industry. We just need a connection. So if you're coming in, I mean, yes, you and I have that advantage of, if I need to talk to somebody at Humble and I don't know somebody at Humble, I can call somebody, message them, whatever. I say call because I'm old. We can get that person. But if you're brand new, if you're still trying to get that first stop, how do you start making these connections?
So when you are reaching out to something like the Black Game Developer Fund at Humble Bundle, right, you are one of many trying to access that fund. And so you're trying to percolate your way to the top. You have to go a much more circuitous route, because your email isn't necessarily going to stand out in a sea of like 300 emails they're probably getting a day or something like on this. So a circuitous route would be, you should be reaching out to the Black and Gaming Fund Foundation, Carl Vernato. Like, I know for a fact that he's going to GDC. He's a very open, chummy guy. You should just DM him and say, Nika talked about you on a podcast and said we should meet up at GDC. And I will text him after this and say I referred someone from the audience. And this is literally how you make the connection. And so once you talk to like one person like Carl, or you bring it up like me, I mean, in your meetings, or anybody that you meet with, literally just be very straightforward and honest. Like, I mean, don't show up in sales pitch day one, right? Build your relationship, say hi, but be like, man, I'd love for you to have my card. If you run into anybody from Humble Bundle, or anybody that knows anything about the Black Game Developer Fund, like, remember, it's a circuitous route. You don't have to go to Humble Bundle. There are people that know about the fund, that are advising about the fund, that are working on the fund. There are people that have previously received funds from the fund that will probably help you. And really, like, at this rate, when you have 300-400 emails a day, like, your game pitch has to be solid. Like, if your game pitch isn't solid, if your business isn't up to snuff, like, then forget it. Like, make sure you have your ducks in a row on the substance, but then pitching is just all about making sure you have friends and good relationships, and you're going to have like you're going to meet 30 people and only maybe 2 will know what the heck you're talking about, but that's what you're looking for. And you literally, it's almost like you really have to just knock on doors. But you
So,
should be reaching out to the Black and Gaming Foundation.
so Thomas, the other thing is that those people who know about how to get into the Black Gaming Fund at Humble probably also know about 3 or 4 more funds or opportunities that you don't even know about. And so
Yeah.
that's another way. The other thing is, and yeah, I'm going to toot our own horn here and my wonderful partner at Meet to Match. That's the reason. I mean, these digital events, I know they have been, God knows, everywhere, and there's 400 of them last year, but that's going to slow down. But these are literally designed to let you do that. When you use Meet to Match at any digital or live event, that whole system is built so you can literally just go in there and say, okay, Humble Bundle is here. Here's the person from Humble Bundle. You don't need their email address. You can just simply send them a meeting request, describe what you're looking for, and you start that way. But it really is, I can't compare it to another industry because this is the only industry I have ever worked in. But
It's the same in other industries. I've done
it's
tech, I've done
networking.
policy. It's the exact same thing. It's and it's I promise you that like the earlier you start with your outreach, the more you're going to like you will eventually build momentum. It goes literally from 1 to 60 really quick, or 0 to 60 really fast. Like you go from like, I don't know anybody. And then you're going to be that person, if you're persistent, that everyone's like, oh my God, they're everywhere. And the point, and when you are everywhere, when you get from your 0 to 60, your job is to pay it forward for the next person that asks, hey, how do I get in touch with Humble Bundle for the Black Game Development Fund? That's literally pretty much like the virtuous circle that is game industry conferencing. That's why people are going to be helping you, is because they have received help before you.
All right, so I just went to Guy's like LinkedIn page because Thomas is like, "Could you tell this name again?" And I'm gonna like send him like Guy's LinkedIn page, and I just realized
Yeah.
I'm not even connected to Guy on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I
So,
will say I have actually beefed up we didn't talk about this. I've actually beefed up my LinkedIn. I'm starting to. I'm adding all these connections. I used to just treat LinkedIn like a it's there, whatever. Um, I've noticed people are really leaning in hard on LinkedIn at conferences. A lot of people obviously still use business cards. A lot of people don't have business cards. I don't have business cards. I didn't know that I didn't have business cards because we didn't need them for the last 3 years. I actually met someone who forgot business cards, realized that they needed them, and actually handed me um I wish I had it readily available without giving out people's information. They handed me like, those like note cards you use in grade school for like flat flashcards.
a little
Somebody,
5x11.
somebody, not five, they're like 5x7, maybe 4x3s or whatever. Somebody literally went out, bought a stack of like lined flashcards and wrote out their information like business cards. And I know this because I got one. And the conversation immediately went from whatever we were talking about to, what is this? I'm not being mean. I have a lot of questions, right? And I mean, it's I will say it stands out. Like I emailed the person back because it was the first one I emailed because it's a lined flashcard. I was like, this is a lot of work.
Hold on, I'm networking during our networking talk.
Of course you
Um,
are.
yeah, all
But
right. So,
yeah, definitely. I mean, I would recommend like beef up your LinkedIn. People are using the QR code. I had to re-download the app. People are literally using LinkedIn to in message during conferences. I
what
actually went
what
like
QR code?
in LinkedIn, you have a QR code like Venmo, whatever, that you scan to add somebody and connect faster on LinkedIn.
Did not
I'm
know that.
actually infuriated by how QR codes have made a comeback. At conferencing, like, we even for a jobs page, we're putting out a QR code, etc. I don't like QR codes.
What do
at all.
QR codes ever do to you,
I
Nika?
don't like them. I just think they're clunky. I think it's weird. Like we haven't figured out a better system. And the fact that QR codes have come back in a big way, I'm just like, this is obviously not like an opinion of my employers. This is an opinion of me. I'm just like, oh no. Like, do you know how much maybe it's like the elder millennial in me that likes instant gratification, but like to just sit there going, uh,
Well, don't worry. I'm the elder Gen X, and I will hand you a business card because I have
yeah.
them.
But
Yeah,
I
so
will say the people that are doing QR codes, I'm connecting with faster and whatnot. My business cards are my last priority of follow-ups. Like I still haven't gotten through them, even though I'm on my follow-ups. I am doing the follow-ups with LinkedIn and digital way faster. So as annoying as it is in the moment, it definitely yields better long-term results, at least for me.
I mean, I always recommend people, and you have to be careful. I have gotten stricter with my LinkedIn over the years. It's
Yeah,
like
I'm about to delete a bunch of people.
yes,
I'm so done. I'm like, get out of here. Who are these people disguised as my friend that want to sell me some crap I literally will never need? Ever.
yes, yes. But my biggest pet peeve is like if you send me, and this is partly unfair because if you do a a connection request on a phone, it doesn't let you send a message. But it's like my biggest pet peeve is getting connection requests from people that I don't know, and there's like nothing in there about why you want to connect. It's like take two
Oh,
seconds
that's me.
to.
I don't take 2 seconds. I just connect.
All right, so let's talk.
But I'm the one with the +8 invite because I
Yeah,
planned ahead.
again,
So
extortion.
I don't
We
need
get
to.
it, Nika. You're
Is it extortion? I don't think so. I just want to be like the giving tree of party
Hey,
invites.
Guy, if you're still here, can we kick Nika from the gig event so she has to like beg
He
one of us to
can't.
get in?
He can't.
So,
I'm the host.
damn it.
Yeah, I'm your late night host. You get the morning Nika, you get the evening Nika. I'm actually really glad it's almost like, and again, right, it's the persona you have. Like this is your professional persona, this is your personal persona. Like Nika at South by is going to be different than Nika at GDC versus the difference. Like I was definitely going to be different at Dice. Like who I am, depending on like which like employee I'm with, actually does change. It's really interesting. I've actually maneuvered like what part of me I want to come out where. It feels a little psychotic. Like, like,
So,
yeah, don't get shit faced in front of your boss. It
and if
feels
you're
a
the
little
boss, don't
rudimentary
get shit faced in front of your
in front of your
employees.
employees.
Start
I
groping the
agree.
interns and end up in a hotel with one of them, like I
Absolutely
saw.
not. Yeah.
Yes.
Don't be shit. I mean, I really wish that there was like, that's the nice thing about virtual is if somebody sucks and does something unsafe or terrible, you can literally just block them. And I mean, there's so many times in real life I just want to be like, whoosh. It doesn't work. I'm
I don't know.
swiping
I'm
the
too
other way.
old to know
Why
if
are they still in front of me?
I don't know if we're supposed to swipe left or swipe right. I'm too
I'm
old to
not
be
sure
doing that,
either.
but
It's been 6
it's
years, but
um
it's something like, or just anything. Just find like, where's like the leave this meeting button? End meeting for everybody. Or even better, actually, my favorite, and I actually literally thought about this. Don't be that person that rambles on and on and on and on about your business idea at 11 o'clock while I'm like trying to like in the middle of talking to someone else. I literally in my head, this shows like my Zoom hosting skills. I in my head literally went mute, please mute. It's not working. And then I realized, you know what the real life version of a mute button is? Oh my gosh, you're awesome. Have you met my friend? Whatever. That's bad. That's really bad because this is the problem with doing talks like this, Jay, because like people are going to think if I'm introducing them to other people, I'm trying to get rid of them. And
oh
that
yeah,
is
that's it.
definitely not the case. It's
Remember, if you're
only the
talking
case
to
after
Nika
10:30.
and she tries to introduce you to her friend, don't fall for that shit. That's
I will
the
say, but I will also say, like, I've been more blunt and I don't know if people are appreciating it or not. Like, I have literally had someone be like, oh my God, Nika, we met online, we did whatever. And I literally I looked at them and said, I'm really sorry. I want to have an amazing time with you right now, but I am so drained. I can't process anything. And I've had it met with like, oh, and also like, I understand because I'm dying too. But
By
I've
like the
I've
third or
been
fourth day, yeah.
I've been blunt. Like if I see someone that's coming in with the full agenda, I've literally been like, please let's pause this and find me tomorrow. I'm not going to remember anything you're telling me now, and I don't think it serves you well for me to just be like polite about it. I was very direct with people at Dice when I was like, I'm fried, or I'm looking for my friend, or like.
But I mean, you can't. I know that a lot of folks are going to be at these meetings and they see somebody, that's like from a specific company that they absolutely want to meet with, and they're going to try to do that, and they're going to be taken aback by it, or
Yeah,
it was
they
going to
are.
happen to them. It is absolutely okay to say that, because I mean,
Yeah.
everybody is like, one of my favorite things when we used to do Casual Connect up in Seattle was I would go get my coffee and then stand about halfway up the stairs watching wherever the area where all the booths were, because it's like the first day it was packed. The
Yeah.
second day, there's a little room to walk around in there. Third day is like nobody was there early in the morning because everybody's been out,
See,
partying, and they're tired. I mean,
I
that's just
don't
it.
that again, I think they're like FOMO is real because I went to bed the one night I went to bed like reasonable. I actually and I honestly, if you read the room, I remember like at 10 o'clock on Wednesday, I was like, okay, just rally. And I walked in and the vibe was like there's a lot of people, but the vibe was really low. And there are people that are like, yeah, I'm just shoveling ice cream and sugar in my mouth so I can like get out to the karaoke or whatever. And I remember I heard this person say that out loud and I said, you know what? I'm not going to do that. It's for like probably the first time I've ever like in years. I don't know. Maybe I used to do this. Maybe I didn't. But I read the room and I went to bed at 10. I woke up at 6, fresh as a daisy. I went to the organized breakfast at like 7:30, 8 o'clock because like the gym didn't open till 8. It was like whatever. But the breakfasts were packed every single day.
It's
It does
free.
not matter how late people were at the night before. People were having breakfast meetings. I had breakfast at 8:15 because I was up. I actually texted in my WhatsApp like, anybody else up? The gym doesn't open till 8. Somebody that I really needed to talk to that was very packed was like, would love to have coffee with you at 7:15. And I was like, done. I mean, people are having meetings that early. Every single
Oh
day I
yeah.
had a meeting that started at 7 a.m. because they're trying to pack in other people because they overplanned. And like actually, and most of them are executives. Like all my executive meetings happened at 7 a.m.
I
I
mean,
was,
back in the day, we would have two breakfast meetings. We'd
oh
have,
yeah,
an
I
early one and
probably
then a
went to
second one.
3 breakfasts a day, and it's
Hmm.
like, and then lunch.
We're
I mean,
hobbits.
people were meeting at every time of day. Sure, some days were a little bit lighter than others, but it was every single freaking day. Breakfast, stuff happening, double lunch, 3 dinners, after party,
Yeah.
after party. And you just had to like decide, like, okay, I'm not going to have a great conversation with anyone tonight. I'm out because I'd rather have great conversations in the morning. Um, Again, like it's weird. This all feels a little rudimentary to say out loud,
But I
but
mean, that's why we do the show. So
no, and we've been to conferences for 10 years, and I will say I felt a little bit like Bambi, like verbal Bambi, like like
well, all right. So
Arnica,
we've only
who are
got like
you?
6 minutes left
Oh, do we have any
before
more
we
questions?
about networking. No, Jax has a question unrelated, but says, should I work with publishers as a solo game developer? Jax, I always recommend, if you've never shipped a game yourself, yes. For funding and for experience, because there's so much that has to go into the marketing side of it, and tons of things that you may not even know you don't know. Do your first one with a publisher. All right, you're at a party. Don't drink from open cups. But the infamous image from Ammunition over at the Twitch party one year, where there was just like lines and lines and lines of beers ready to be consumed that were just sitting there out in the open for anybody and everybody to drop all kinds of shit into.
Yeah, I mean, remember that like you are gonna be in this euphoria, but of like meeting people, and by 9 o'clock you're gonna be like mentally ragged because you're, again, people don't realize that, women, people from marginalized communities, in addition to just like having a conversation with you, we're also analyzing 10 other things for our own safety. Some of it now, after a long period of time, it's instinctual. Some people will sadly maybe put in positions where they're learning for their first time, and then they get jaded or they leave the industry or something bad happens and that stuff sucks. So a couple things. If you are and this really isn't even like if you're a minority, this is just good practice. If drinks are just like laid out, don't grab those. If they're opened or tampered, do not grab those. Doesn't matter if it's like your best friend, whatever, like go get a closed container. I mean, like, I think most people actually adhere to these rules. Doesn't matter if you're man, male, female at Vegas, right? Because it's Vegas. Don't think like, oh, well, this isn't Vegas, it's San Francisco. Just get your own drinks. When I have a colleague, for example, is our chief revenue officer, Jamie Negri. Like, I trust him to get my drinks because like water, sodas, even whatever, I trust him because like he watches. He's very situationally aware. I know that I'm not the most situationally aware person. I love seeing the best in people. Everything's awesome, rainbows, oh my god, right? Like I'm the person to be like, I'm like overly inclusive, like everybody's amazing, like, I turn into a total Snow White. If there's dogs in the area, I'll go up and run them, grab them. Like I'm a full part, like business Snow White after like 9 p.m. And that's so if you're somebody like that, that's very open, that loves talking to people, that sees the best in people, you have to have people that are going to be more situational aware, a little bit more guarded, that'll look out for you. I always, if I am having anything made for me, I always watch it being made. Like people were like, oh, I'll get it for you. I'm like, no, I'll get something for you. And like, I mean, I also like in the beginning of the night, my move usually is like, I like to go early, and I actually go and I like build a relationship with the bartender. 2 reasons. One,
Extortion.
I know that, yes, extortion. I talk to the bartender because I like to have a relationship. To make sure that like no funny business happens. Like they're like, oh, we definitely like her. We want her to stick around. 2, I get my drinks faster, and so then I get to go. And if I get my drinks faster, I'll order drinks for you. Oh, let me go get it, and it'll come back in 5 minutes versus like an hour. And now I've bought 55 minutes of your time because that's 55 minutes you would have had to spend waiting for your drink.
All right, and so my last pro tip at the bars, at the parties, aside from safety, when you get there, the very first location, be it a bar, a stand, or whatever that has drinks, is going to be absolutely packed. Keep walking.
Yeah.
Everybody stops at the first place to get a beer. Go to the back because that bartender is going to be standing there doing nothing because everybody stopped at the first.
And I know people aren't going to like this, but don't do shots.
Don't
do it. It's a business event. Like, I get it in the moment. Oh my God, everyone's doing it. Do you see C-suite taking shots? No.
Well.
Oh, not in public at business events. Okay. I've never seen Phil Spencer take a shot. I'll say it out loud. He's a very successful individual.
That level of C-suite, yes.
Yeah.
But C-suite at a lot of companies in the industry,
okay. Screw those people. Aspire to be that level of C-suite. Aspire to the Phil Spencers, the Owen Mahoney's, the Strauss Zelnicks, because I would like to see more diversification at that level. And you know how that's going to happen? Not by taking shots or pushing other people into doing that, like be like drink. I've never seen any of them overserved at these events.
All right. Nika is in the Discord. At least she is occasionally. If you've got more questions, we've got to kick it over to Dan. He has got Junie and Shams. They're going to be talking about how to failing while scaling common pitfalls of growing your company. Nika, thank you so much. So real quick, Thomas, yes, send Nika a connection, but send her a note with it that says who you are and
Yeah, that'll
why.
be
I'll
helpful.
always be willing to do that because the worst they can say is no. Like, who
Yeah.
cares? That's fine. Just do it. And Jack's asking, the best strategy to attract publishers. We ain't got nearly enough time to get into it right now. But if you go to this very YouTube page, there are entire sessions and podcasts and all kinds of stuff about exactly how to do that. That's why we do this show. Nika, I cannot wait to see you in real life. And
I can wait.
well, that's why I'm not on the WhatsApp thing yet.
Yeah,
Okay.
I will. And thanks, Jay. Again, if you're looking for a job, we are hiring. We need everything. I'm very needy right now on the hiring front. We'll populate stuff in the Discord. So if you need a paycheck, call me.
Hit up Nika.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, everybody, stay with us. We'll be right back.